Welcome to the Women's Motorsport Network Let's Talk Racing podcast with hosts Melinda Russell and Brett Timmerman. Brought to you by Highline Raceway. Now here they are. Let's talk racing.
Well, hello everyone. This is Melinda Russell coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been here for almost a week, enjoying some R&R, away from unpacking and sorting and moving to our house, which, oh my gosh, we needed a break. And so we've been here with my youngest daughter and her family, and then my oldest daughter Brandy, who lives in Kalamazoo, was here as well. They went home today because they got a race on Friday, so they got to get home, work on those cars. And so I'm here in Nashville. Brett's coming to us from Iowa, and Taylor McLean is our guest, and so we are very pleased to have her on tonight. As many people know, Taylor represents the Driven to Save Lives organization, and I know she's going to tell us about that. But first, Taylor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your motorsports story, so people who maybe don't know who you are can start at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been involved in motorsports basically since I think I was 2 days old, probably in the womb, still with my mom. My dad, he raced 410 sprint cars out in California. So I kind of grew up at a racetrack, and my dad got involved in an accident where he broke his back and took some time off from racing. And at that time, my big brother, Brian Clausen, was kind of starting to get his feet wet in quarter midgets and all of that. So, I remember vividly spending a lot of time out at the quarter midget tracks and watching Brian. And so my dad decided to kind of step away from racing and spend time with Brian and I. And I kind of just grew up racing with my brother. His kind of career took off from there, and I've been involved in the sport as a sister of a driver, since I was born, really. But kind of tried to find my own way in the sport and what have you. And so that's kind of, I was born into it. It's in my blood. I spent a couple years when I was in college kind of walking away from the sport a little bit, playing college soccer, kind of doing my own thing, but ended up coming right back to it as I had an internship at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that kind of got my feet wet in the motorsports industry as a professional. And so ever since then, I've kind of been involved. And then fast forward to August of 2016, my brother Brian was involved in a fatal racing accident. And unbeknownst to us, he was an organ donor and saved 5 lives through organ donation, and could heal up to 75 others through tissue donation. And so after Brian's accident, I became extremely passionate about telling my story and talking about organ donation and what that process did for our family as a whole. And I was lucky enough to partner with Indiana Donor Network, and they had a campaign at the time called Driven to Save Lives. And we use that now as a platform to talk about donation within the racing community. And it kind of married my two passions of talking about Brian and continuing his legacy with organ donation and racing. So that's kind of how I got to where I'm at today. I'm not, it's been a crazy wild ride. I think if you would have told me 6 years ago this is where I would be in my life, I would have called you crazy. But that's kind of where life has led me, and we're making the best of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've turned a tragedy into something positive, which, that you hear that more often than you think, that families go through a terrible tragedy and then they find a way to help others. And that's what your family's done. And that's what Driven to Save Lives has done. So why don't you tell us a little bit then about the Driven to Save Lives? Let's start with the ambassador program. I signed up to be an ambassador. And so I want to promote that as much as I can. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how people can help spread the word?
Yeah, so it really goes all the way back to the beginning. When after Brian died, there were so many race fans that wrapped their arms around our family, and they wanted to do something to be able to help. And we, as a family, decided that the one way that they could help our family continue Brian's legacy was to sign up to be organ donors. And so we've spent the last 5 years, traveling across the country to different racetracks, partnering with different organizations to really spread that message, share Brian's story, and also kind of make donation and transplantation not so much of a taboo topic within the racing community. I know when we talk about death and dying within racing, it is kind of that taboo topic that nobody wants to talk about. But our family was able to take a tragedy in losing Brian, and a tragedy that was felt across the entire motorsports community, and turn it into something positive. And it's been really cool to see fans really embrace Driven to Save Lives as a whole, and make it kind of their own way to honor Brian, and continue his legacy. And so
Mm-hmm.
over the last 5 years, we've worked really hard to sign people up. And it was probably about 8 to 12 months ago that, I kept going through different racetracks, and people kept coming up and saying, I've already signed up. I've already signed up. And then I kept getting emails. How can we help more? How can we help more? And so the idea for the ambassador program came about. And it's really the first thing since August of 2016 that I've been able to build from the ground up. And so I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. Basically, it's a way for race fans who have already signed up to be organ donors to go out within their own communities, talk to their own friends and families, and really, have the conversation about donation so that they are able to save lives as well. And so there's different incentives. We do some really cool ambassador events for people that have already signed up. We have giveaways, free tickets to races, things like that. And we're really just encouraging people to go out and have the conversation. It's not something that my family and I had ever talked about with Brian. We never talked about organ donation, but we know how important that conversation is to have. And, it's been really cool to hear stories within the racing community of people that maybe necessarily didn't want to share their stories or felt like they could share their stories about how a loved one had died and became a donor, or they were a transplant recipient, or they know somebody within the racing community who was a transplant recipient. And it's been really cool to just have this, brand, so to speak, open up that conversation for people to really share their own stories. And so I've been blessed to be able to help kind of build a safe space for people to talk about organ donation within racing, and show them that, just because someone's no longer with us doesn't mean their legacy isn't going to continue.
That's so true. And the whole thing about death and dying, we don't talk about it within our families because we don't want to think about it. We don't want to think that your brother how old was Brian when he passed away?
27.
27. We do not want to think about a 27-year-old, vibrant, active, good-looking young man who is going to leave us. And so we just avoid those conversations. And it's the same with Brett and I both are passionate about the National Suicide Prevention, because I lost my son to suicide, and Brett's lost some friends and family to that. And it's the same type of thing that you're doing, Taylor. We're making people aware, and we're taking away the stigma of it's not something we talk about. It is something we should all talk about, and we should all be signed up to be an organ donor, because when I'm gone, my earthly body is no longer going to help anyone unless I'm an organ donor. And so we just wanted to we wanted to have you on. We wanted to share what you're doing, especially because we want to encourage everyone that listens to us, and the whole racing community especially, to learn more about Driven to Save Lives and become an ambassador and become an organ donor. And so, I love what you're doing. I know you're passionate about it. Your whole family is. So I'm glad we could share that part of your life. I also know you have a race team that you're very involved in, correct?
Yeah, I do. I am extremely involved with Clausen Marshall Racing.
Mhm.
I run social media for them and kind of handle brand management, that type of stuff. If you, again, I'm one of those people who, going through college, I pushed as far away from racing as possible because I grew up around it and it was Brian's thing, and I kind of rebelled, so to speak, against the sport and was like, I'm never going to end up there, blah, blah, blah. And then, fast forward to where I'm at now. And,
Mhm.
I love it. I love the racing community. And I think it was, that day in August of 2016, the amount of people from the racing community that wrapped their arms around my family, how could you not want to go back to that? I was really afraid the first time I went to a racetrack after Brian's death, that it wouldn't feel like home anymore. And it was just the opposite. It felt like the most welcoming and familiar place that I could have ever asked to be in that moment. And I have friends all the time that aren't involved in motorsports. They're like, how could you walk back into a sport that took something away from you? And I'll be the first to say it also gave us so much. The amount of time we spent with Brian at the racetrack, we were never on our phones. We were always engaging in conversation. We were spending time playing in the dirt, throwing rocks at each other, whatever it was good family quality time. And I look back at my childhood and the way I was raised and all of that, and it's because of racing and the community of people that was
Mhm.
surrounding us. And so as I look forward to my future, why would you not want to be involved with people like
Right.
that? Racing brings some of the best people you'll ever meet into your life. And I think, probably 95% of my closest friends and family are a part of the racing community. And that's because they're so genuine, and they're the first ones to help you out. Even our biggest competitors are the first ones,
Right.
if we're having a bad day, to walk over to us and say, share a story about Brian, or give us a hug, or ask if we're really doing okay. And so to be a part of that community is amazing. But I also love the aspect of being a woman in motorsports and having that challenge of really embracing and showing how, you know, for lack of better words, badass I can be, and how much of a difference I can make within the racing community, and hopefully leave it better than when it was when I entered it. And so I'm very fortunate to get to work with a team like Clausen Marshall Racing, near and dear to my heart, of course. But also some of the things we've gotten to do over the last 5 years have been amazing. We just finished a media stunt with Tony Kanaan, got him in a midget. We did one last year with Jeff Gordon. So getting to experience those things, winning the King's Royal, just some of
Mhm.
the bucket list items that I've been able to be a part of as a part of the team, has really been amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
No, and I always say if racing could quit tomorrow and you couldn't go to any racetracks, I'm still going to have all those friends. I'm still going to have all
Mhm.
those memories, and I know you feel the same way about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit about your driver. I know you're having a good year. So who drives for your team now?
Yeah, so we have two drivers that run for us full time. Tyler Courtney, he's been with us since the very beginning, and he runs the NOS Energy Drink number 7 BC on for the All Star Circuit of Champions. So he's looking to defend his All Star Championship this year. He's been a part of our lives since I was 14, 15, something like that, and
Mhm.
kind of grew up around Brian. He's like a little brother to me. So, having him a part of our team is really special. And then for Driven to Save Lives and Clausen Marshall Racing, we have Emerson Axem. He
Mhm.
drives, we're running the full USAC National Sprint Car Tour this year with him, and then select special event midget races. We've dipped our toe in the wing sprint car stuff as well this year. And it's been really cool to, have a young kid like Emerson step into a professional environment with our team, and having, Driven to Save Lives is his first big sponsor, come on board. And he's really grown so much, and it's been really fun to work with him. We've had to talk to him about media interviews, and just the little things that 17-year-olds don't really know about within the sport that are so important when you're competing at the top level. And so it's been really cool to get to work with him and kind of see him evolve over even the last 6 months, and really kind of find his own way. We started off the year really, really strong with him winning 2 races right out of the gate, 2 USAC national sprint car races. And then, we kind of had a little bit of an adjustment period with the team. And I feel like now heading into kind of the heart of the season, we have Indiana Sprint Week coming up this next week. He's really starting to find his groove, and it's been really fun to get to work with him. And he's just such a good kid. He's one of those people that's really rare to find within the sport, that is so respectful and appreciative. And it's been really cool to see kind of him grow over the last 6 months.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see where he goes and what he does. And you're right. We think about, oh, they know all these things, and then you realize he's only 17 years old. There's a lot of life that he hasn't experienced, and so sometimes you have to kind of bite your lip a little bit when sometimes the comments or the actions are not what we expect. And then we remind ourselves that these are just kids, and that, to take him under your wing and to be able to mentor him. I know your whole family's involved in your race team. And that, he's such a lucky kid to be a part of that team. And then on the other side, you're lucky to have him as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the cool thing about what we've built at Clausen Marshall Racing is you have a kid like Emerson, right, who's new. He's kind of the young gun, up and coming star. But then you have Sunshine on the other hand, who's literally been there from the very beginning. He was in our first midget that we ever had as a team. And so, we've really had to really, to share that knowledge between the two, and encourage Emerson to use Sunshine as a resource. And that's kind of a unique thing that we have with the team. And I think it's going to bode us well here coming up as we come, going into the heart of the season. And, we've encouraged Emerson to use Sunshine as a resource because, he's been in that exact car on those exact tracks with this exact team. And so I think it'll be really cool to see how those two work together continuing throughout this year.
Yeah, for sure. So Taylor, do you know Michael Moore?
The name sounds familiar.
Okay, because he made the comment, "Go Sunshine," so he obviously follows your team and knows something about your team for sure. Anyway, so here we go again, Brett. You're just sitting there. Do you have any questions or anything you want to talk to Taylor about?
I just enjoy listening. I'm an organ donor myself. When I got my driver's license, I made sure it was on it and signed up, and it's I'm pretty passionate about that stuff. I'm a very kind guy, and I want to help save lives, and I'm pushing on my kids to be the same way. And so like we're talking about Emerson, how did it come about your team?
Yeah, so about last year, midway through the season, we were in need of somebody to fill the seat. And, we had always kept our eye on him, the stuff that he was doing in the micros and then in the midgets. And so we were kind of keeping our eye on him. And the one thing that I think attracts me to a driver more than anything else, especially as a sponsor, but also as a part of a team that means so much, is how they interact outside of the race car, just as much as how good they are inside of the race car. And, I think my dad was the one that brought it up to me, and he was like, what would you think about Emerson? And my first question was he good? And he was like, yeah, I wouldn't bring him up if he wasn't good. I was like, okay, fair enough. But I had a chance to kind of follow him on the USAC midget stuff, and just seeing the way how respectful he drove, the way he interacted with people outside of the race car, the way he interacted with fans. That's kind of what really made us pick up the phone and give him a call. And so it was really only supposed to be a one weekend deal with him. He was going to fill in for us at SmackDown, and then we were just going to see kind of what we needed to fill out the rest of the season. And we were so impressed with him. He did a driver autograph session the first night at SmackDown without hesitation, fully branded. And it was just those little things mean so much to us. And, was more than happy to spend 30 minutes out at our activation tent for Driven to Save Lives. And so when the weekend was over, Dad and I kind of sat down and decided that, he was going to be our guy as long as he wanted to be. And so that's kind of how it all came about.
So what was his reaction when you said, hey, we want you to be our driver?
He's a pretty even-keeled, he has a very even-keeled temperament. His highs never get really, really high, and his lows never get really, really low. But you could tell he was excited. I think a little bit nervous maybe. But one thing he learned very quickly about racing for our team and specifically for Driven to Save Lives is we're one big family. And, we understood that when he came on board that this was going to be a learning opportunity. He was going to have to step into not only one of the most, one of the biggest ride opportunities of his life, but also represent something that meant so much to us. And so obviously that can be intimidating for somebody, but he took it with stride. One of the most humble kids you'll ever meet. He's very, he represents our family well. And, I know that Brian would be really impressed with who he is inside of the race car and outside of the race car. And so it's been really cool to just kind of see him also kind of change his attitude a little bit. When he first came in, you could tell he was a little hesitant, but now he's the first one to give me a hug at the racetrack and all of that stuff. So it's been fun to kind of see that side of him come out a little bit more too.
I'm sure Brian had a hand in helping you pick out a driver too.
Yeah, for sure. We always ask him for signs, and one way or another, they always show up, whether it's a grasshopper on a race car or a little bit of rain before we go out, or a double rainbow over a racetrack. He always lets us know when he's there.
Yeah. So Michael Moore says, with the pavement midgets kicking back up in Indiana, is Clausen Marshall going to compete in some of those races?
Oof, that's a tough one. I don't see that happening, but I've also learned to never say never. I would have told you that we would have never raced in the Indy 500 either, and that happened. So, I never say never, but we're pretty happy with the path of what we're going down. We're really starting to find our legs in the wing sprint car side of things, continuing to be competitive on the non-wing side, and then running those special event midget races. So we'll see what the future holds.
Right. Never say never, because it could come to bite you for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So midget sprint car week's coming up, right? You mentioned that. So can you tell us a little bit about where that is, where you're going to be racing, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So we'll be racing 8 different tracks across the state of Indiana in 9 days. So we kick that off on Friday at Gas City. Then we head to Kokomo. Then we'll head to Lawrenceburg, Circle City, and then we have a break. And then I'll look at where the back half of that is during the break.
Right.
But yeah, so we are headed out across the state of Indiana starting Friday. We'll have activation for Driven to Save Lives every single night. We're actually doing some really cool giveaways. We'll be giving away tickets to the BC 39 every single night for those who sign up to be ambassadors. We'll also do driver autograph sessions with Emerson. And then we'll be unveiling our ambassador program scheme on the car, which will be really cool because there will be a QR code where fans can go up and scan that QR code right on the car and sign up to be an ambassador right there. So we're really excited to continue pushing that program. And it really kicks off Friday with Indiana Sprint Week.
Right. That's a huge week. I know even for, in Kalamazoo area where I'm at, we don't have really sprint car, unless they come as a special event. But you don't have to go far south to Kokomo or somewhere like that. And it's huge. And so, it's going to Kokomo is first of all, it's a great track to visit. So I'm going to encourage people to look up, the sprint car week, where are they, and take a day off and go check out the sprint cars. Because I tell you, once I went to Kokomo with some friends who are big sprint car fans, and I left there that night thinking, darn, I wish this was closer, because I would go way more often. And then I got hooked up with this Timmerman family and a bunch of Iowa dirt people. And so more and more I'm following the sprint car world, which is really, it's huge, and it's really competitive as well.
Yeah. And, it's really cool to see there's this kind of resurgence in grassroots racing because of not only non-wing, but wing sprint car racing right now is, right there with, your NASCAR and IndyCar racing. And so it's been really cool because that's what I grew up watching. So for me, that's a normal weekend. But there's more NASCAR fans who are watching sprint car racing and more IndyCar fans who are watching sprint car racing, and they're like, this is crazy.
It
like,
is.
yeah, we do it 80 times a year.
Yeah. And that's crazy when you think about it, because gosh, I don't know how many races, Brett, your family races, but it's not anywhere close to 80. And then you look at the NASCAR series, and that's 36, I think, or something in that neighborhood. And then, you look at the sprint cars, and they more than double that. It was like, are you ever home? Do you,
No,
how do you survive 80 races? So you start in maybe like March or April?
Yeah, give or take.
And then you race through October?
Yeah, November, really, because you can
November.
go out west to California and all those places in the fall.
Yeah. So that's a lot of travel, and it's a lot of races. But Brett, you want to be that guy, don't you? You want to be the guy that's the little gypsy traveling all over the country.
I want to. Adriana's working her way up the ladder, but that is her dream, and my dream is to be right there with her. So we kind of decided last year to try to live the life of it, and we raced 68 races, which was a ton of races, but especially for go-kart racing. But it was fun. Every time we leave the track, I'm like, oh, I got to go back to work. I wish I was going back to the track to be at it. But it's definitely, you got to want to live that life. You definitely got to want to live it to do it. But hopefully one day we'll be there.
Well, and I'm sure there's days that you're like, I wish I could just stay home. I mean, that's true of, I don't care what you do. There's times you just, and the other side is that people think that travel is glamorous. For people who don't travel, they think it's glamorous. It's not one bit glamorous. And, I'm sure you have a motorhome or something that you travel in, or whatever it might be. And it's like, wow, I just would like to have a hot shower and a night in my own bed. Right.
And a good meal.
And a good meal, not fast food or not a ham sandwich. Yeah. I totally get it, but yet if somebody gave you a choice of never doing that or always doing that, because it's really one or the other, I know what your choice is. It's always doing that. It just is, because it's in your blood, and it's with your family.
Yep.
That's what you want to be doing. And so, I love to talk to people that are passionate about racing, because people who aren't, or people who don't know anything about motorsports or the racing, they just think you're going around in a circle, and what's the fun of that? And that's not it at all. It's like people tell me about hunting. I'm not a hunter. I could care less about any of that kind of thing. But yet people who like to hunt or fish, tell me it's not about killing the deer or catching the fish. It's about the experience and being out in the woods and etc. And it's the same at the racetrack. It's,
Yep.
Yes, we want to win. Obviously, we always want to win, but it's not always about the winning.
No.
No, it's not. It's when all's said and done, it's about the people.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
So Taylor, go ahead, Brett. Did you have something?
well, I didn't want to interrupt you, but
No, go ahead.
Since you're a car owner, basically, I'm gonna kind of just kind of question you about, I got a young up and comer. I'm not even leaning towards having you be an owner towards her, but as an owner, how do you, what do I tell her that you're looking for? Like, as a young driver coming up in the racing world, I know we've talked a little bit about it, but what else do you look at besides just their social media and their outside of the race car life? Like, what can we tell these young kids that are wanting to be up and comers? What can we tell them they need to do in order to get the attention of a car owner?
Yeah, I mean, we get asked that a lot. My dad would probably be the best person to answer this, but I'll try to take a page out of his book. One of the things that we are very proud of with Tyler Courtney is when he traveled with Brian as, a part of the crew and all of that, he was just a sponge. He learned everything he could about anything that Brian would give him. And it's the little things like, obviously on track performance is important, and that's, we as a company need to win to be able to continue to afford to do this. But I think that nowadays sponsorship is just as important, and so making sure that you know how to take care of your sponsors. So like you said, the social media presence, the way you're representing their brand, and then just doing the hard work. Sunshine went from sweeping floors to changing tires to him working hard enough over the summer that Brian was like, I'm going to build an extra car for this kid so that he could run one race at Kokomo, because he worked so hard. And so it's not always taking the easy route of, just going out and winning, because that'll only take you so far. But, I think that, really working hard and showing that you deserve, an opportunity. And then once you do get that opportunity, you have to take advantage of it. Once you do get in front of people. So if you're running, say, if we're running sprint cars somewhere and there's a support class, you better believe that our eyes are on what those kids are doing as well, just to see if there's any up and coming talent that's worth, keeping an eye on. And I remember when Zeb Wise drove for us, my dad, asked him how his racing was going, and he was like, it's going good. My dad's like, well, like, how's it going? And he's like, it's going good. My dad's like, are you winning races? And Zeb's like, yeah, a few. And my dad's like, well, if you could put a number to it, how many races have you won this year? And he said something crazy, like 26 or something. I don't know how many it was. And my dad's like, why am I not hearing about this? And it was funny because Zeb said, because Brian told me always to be humble. Which I think is pretty interesting. But just putting yourself on the map, and I know that's hard to do, but we get kids all the time that want to come, work at the shop, and they're up and coming drivers. They want a shot, all that stuff. But they only last a week or two working in the shop because it's too hard. So, it's just having that appreciation to work for what you want. And then my biggest thing as a sponsor is just, representing who we are as a company and as a family and as an organization to the best of your ability. Everything that we do, we look to emulate what Brian would have been. And so, that's just important to us as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I know Carson Hocevar.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Carson thought a lot of Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Brian was a mentor to him as well. And so, he's made his way and is making his way in the NASCAR series. But I know that, there's probably hundreds, if not more, of kids that Brian influenced that you don't even know about. And isn't that interesting? And I'm sure you get stories where people will come up to you that you don't know, and they'll be like, "Oh, my son was Brian's biggest fan," or
Mhm.
he always wanted to go watch Brian race. And so and now it's Tyler or Emerson,
Mhm.
and the legacy that Brian left is the culture at your
Mhm.
team, and so people are still following and supporting and wanting to be a part of not only Driven to Save Lives, but to support your team as well. And so I know that has to make you feel good when you get those conversations with people.
Yeah, it definitely does, I don't think we really realized the impact that Brian had on people, unfortunately, until after, he died. But it's been really cool to even almost 6 years later now, keep hearing new stories and keep,
Mhm.
having people come up to us and share, whether it was a small interaction that they had with him, at a racetrack, or that they've been a fan of his for forever. Just hearing those stories and hearing their why of why he
Mhm.
was important to them. It makes you feel good. And I know that,
Yeah.
that means the most to my mom when she's at the racetrack and people are always like, Mrs. Clausen. So that makes her feel good. And it's definitely crazy to think that now we're 6 years removed from him
Mhm.
passing, and we still hear stories, and there's still different series that want to honor him, whether
Yeah.
it's a trophy that they're presenting an IndyCar race, or doing a special event at a dirt track race, or what have you.
Mhm.
It's pretty humbling that to kind of live through it. And I would trade anything in the world to have him back, but I think that he would be pretty proud of the way we're continuing his legacy, and continuing to honor him even 6 years later now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you did not know he was an organ donor. So
Yeah.
where do you think that came from, or what caused him, to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those things. He signed up when he was 16 years old. We actually found his original driver's license from when he was 16, and it had the red heart on there. So, my guess is that he probably said, "Why not?"
Mhm.
I'm not going to need him anymore. He was a pretty practical person. But hindsight being 2020, that decision that he made not only saved the lives of the 5 people that received his organs, but it also saved our family's life. And I was doing the math the other day for a video that we're getting ready to release, and there's been over 7,000 people who have signed up through Driven to Save Lives to be donors, which equates to over 56,000 lives that could potentially saved, all because Brian said
Wow.
yes to donation. And so, to me, that is incredible. And I'm not sure if he knew what he was doing at that point in time, but the fact that this is what has come out of his death is just
Mhm.
incredible, and I think he would be really happy about that. And knowing Brian and the type of person he was, if he would have been more than happy to leave this earth a little bit early if it meant saving that many people's lives.
Yeah. And that just you being able to say that and with conviction, you
Mhm.
believe it in your heart. I know you
Yep.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Taylor, I know you've impacted motorsports in so many ways through Brian and through Driven to Save Lives. And you mentioned about being a woman in motorsports, and that's what I'm passionate about. I always say we love the men, but we're all about the women. And
Yep.
so, how do what is your legacy going to be when you decide that you don't want to do the travel and you want to stay home and rock your grandbabies on the porch? What's your legacy gonna be?
I really haven't figured that out yet. I'm lucky enough to only be 29 years old at this point in my life, and I've gotten to do a lot of really cool things. But I think the one thing that I keep going back to, and it's something that, I think Brian instilled in me as his little sister, is just leaving the sport better than when I found it, and really trying to make a difference within the community. And if I can inspire one other female to get involved with motorsports as a career path, specifically, within kind of the realm that I kind of am familiar with, which is, brand management, that sort of thing, PR, marketing. I think it's really important to make people aware that there are opportunities for women in motorsports, and there's opportunities no matter what your strengths are, and taking those strengths and combining them with your passion for racing, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's
you
right.
know and so I think, if I can leave the sport a little bit better than I found it, I'll be happy, with my legacy, so to speak. That's a strong word for me to use right
That's a
now,
strong.
just because I'm only, 29, and,
Yeah.
I use that. I take that word very seriously because we talk about it with Brian so often.
Mhm.
But, if I can inspire, somebody else out there to get involved with the sport, then I think that's pretty dang cool. And I've been fortunate,
Yeah.
like I said, to do a lot of really cool stuff. So I don't know what the future holds, but I'm just gonna keep doing what I do and enjoying, getting to be a part of a community that is unlike anything I've ever known.
Mhm. Yeah. Me too. I don't, I'm kind of like you. If you'd have asked me 5 or 6 years ago if I was going to be doing anything like this, I'd have said, heck no, I don't know what you're talking about. But life throws you some curveballs, and or opens some doors, I guess you could say too. And you
hmm
have to be ready to walk through and be like, yeah, I think this is something I want to do. And so, I've known you for a couple of years, maybe 3 now,
hmm
and I know that you've already impacted a lot of lives, not only through Driven to Save Lives, but by sharing your story, by the work that you do and the work that you do with your race team. And so I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to,
hmm
hopefully, that I can call you my friend. And Brett, do you have anything else that you want to ask Taylor about?
Um, I, you basically covered a lot of the stuff that I was going to ask, but you know, just from sitting here and hearing the testimony from you and the stories and you, talking about the legacy, you know, you say you're only 29, but I promise you right now that you're definitely leaving a legacy. You know, if you
Mhm.
ever decide to get out of racing, because just from the lives that you guys have touched and helped, and uh, it's definitely you're definitely leaving a legacy behind. So
Yeah.
no matter what you do, um, so you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there in this world that appreciate what you do, and
Hmm.
you might not get to hear from all of them, but I know I appreciate what you guys are doing, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to. I wish I would have met you a couple years ago, like Melinda did. I'm looking forward to being a part of the Driven to Save Lives family, and uh,
Yeah.
we like to, always welcome people that are on our show. Like just from our short time we've known each other, I'm starting to feel like you're already family of the Women's Motorsport Network. So I just wanted to say welcome to the family.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate those kind words. You know, I'm one, I will never take the credit for anything. So, I have an entire team behind me that really supports what we do. And, my family, my mom and dad, they are amazing
Mhm.
people. And, I think just knowing them, you're a better person just knowing them. And
Yeah.
and so, they get all the credit. I just try to do the work so that they can relax a little bit and not have to stress so much.
Well, it's a team effort, and it's a
Yeah.
family for sure. And like Brett said, the everyone we have on, we always say, now you're part of the Women's Motorsports Network family, which you already were, but welcome to the family anyway
Thank
again.
you.
And Taylor, thank you so much. I'm sure I will see you probably at the Sprint Car Nationals this year.
I will be there. I can't
I will
wait.
be there. I will be there as well. We're going to have another women's event. Last year, Taylor was one of our panelists on our women's event at the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. We're going to do that again Wednesday. I believe it's August 10th. We're going to have another panel, and it'll be in the banquet room. They upgraded us to a bigger room because last year we were standing room only. So there you go. We got an upgrade. So hopefully I'll be able to see you and connect with you there for sure. And one of my weekly listeners, K-Dub, says, how can I get one of those shirts, the Driven to Save Lives?
So we currently don't sell them, but if you sign up to be an ambassador and complete some of the tasks, you can earn a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. So we're looking at potentially putting some online soon, but as far as Indiana Donor Network goes, which is the organization that Driven to Save Lives is ran through, I handle pretty much everything Driven to Save Lives, and I'm juggling a lot of pieces right now. So I got to kind of get through. Maybe this winter we'll have some stuff online, but right now is our busy time.
So K-Dub, you need to sign up to be an ambassador. You need to complete all the tasks, and then you can have a shirt and you can promote it. She lives, I believe, in Washington State.
Oh, awesome.
Out that way somewhere. So anyway, so Taylor, thank you so much. I know you're busy, and I appreciate the time you gave us tonight. I love the fact that you are able to tell your story and impact people, through your story and Driven to Save Lives. And so I'll be anxious to give you a hug when I see you in Knoxville. I'll be seeing you, and Brett will be around because they'll be racing at English Creek. And so thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me, and I'll make sure I'm in the audience for that panel.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. We'll see you there.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Oh, Brett, what a story. And, such tragedy and heartbreak. And then you turn around and you see what they're doing and how much they're impacting people's lives. And, they could have just said no. After that, they could have just said, no, I don't want any part of racing. It took our son. It took our brother. We don't want to be, we're away from it. And they could have walked away. And instead, they jumped in with both feet, and they are impacting so many people and helping so many people. And I love the example they're setting.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome to see people do that, because I know people that have lost family members in a racing accident, and they just walk away. Which both of us, we're helping. We're always here for people. So you as a racer's dad, as a car owner, you don't want to think about that stuff. But I know if anything ever happened, that we would do something to impact other people as far as
absolutely. Absolutely.
It was a great story. It was great to have her. So
absolutely. So tell me about the Timbs. What did they do this week? What have they been racing? You got to give us our update.
Well, we got washed out all weekend. So basically we just promoted our sponsors, set up. We had our hometown celebration. We set the cart up downtown, and a lot of kids got to climb in it, and we had a lot of questions asked. I think we gained a couple new little racers that have never raced. The dads they asked a lot of questions. That was our goal. Adriana was there for about an hour signing some autographs. It was just a good weekend to just chill out and promote. We have a lot of awesome sponsors, and we like to promote. And so any chance we get, we're going to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, we had some rain here in Nashville too. And I know that last Friday night I was headed to go watch Madison race, and it rained that night as well. And so, they've had some rainouts too. So she's lined up to race, I believe, this Friday night at Kalamazoo. So I'm going to try to get home in time on Friday to get to the racetrack. And Fiona says, would love to be a part of Driven to Save Lives if we can help somehow. So absolutely. It's driven, the number 2, savelives.org. Get on there and see what you can do. And if there's an opportunity to tell them that you saw Taylor on our Let's Talk Racing show, that would be great. We want to help support them and share what they're doing. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
So,
anybody that listens out here, you know, we're pushing you basically. Get on Driven to Save Lives and sign up.
yeah.
Be an ambassador.
Yeah.
You know, save a life. It's all.
Yeah.
Your
Make sure you sign up to be an organ donor too. That's the deal. Do that. So, well, I don't have anything else. My son-in-law burnt my hot dogs for me like I like them, and so I'm going and have some dinner. Brett, where are you racing this weekend?
We'll be at English Creek by Knoxville, Iowa, and then
Okay.
2 weeks of that, and then we're off a week, and then we go into our week-long racing for the Nationals. So,
yeah,
I do want to give an update on Carly Holmes since we've talked about it in the last couple
yes,
shows.
please.
She does have a YouTube channel, so anybody can go on YouTube and watch Carly Holmes racing. But she is doing well. She's up and walking. She rides a scooter around most of the time, but she broke her T3 and T4, or fractured it, and has a few bruises. But I think they're saying about an 8 to 10 week recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's gonna talk to him about where her future is at in her racing. So
Okay.
we hope for the best for her. And then one more, Abby Gunther. She was on the show.
Mm-hmm.
She got to race her second race at Millbridge. She is actually, for never not racing on dirt, for being her second time, she is right up there with the boys in their quick times. And she ended up fifth, but I've been kind of coaching her, and from what I'm watching on her videos, and she's improved every time. So we're looking forward to seeing her in the dirt track world.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear about Carly too. So keep praying for her. She still needs our prayers. And then good job, Abby. And we've got some great guests lined up. And so watch our Facebook page, and we'll be announcing those coming up. And then yeah, that's everything I have for tonight. How about you?
Yep, I think it was a pretty good show, and
Very good show.
Hopefully everybody gets on that Driven to Save Lives and starts saving some lives.
Absolutely. All right. So have a great week, everybody. If you race this weekend and you want to share how you did, tag Melinda Russell, tag Brett Timmerman, tag Women's Motorsports Network, and we'll try to share how good you did. We love sharing all the results that the girls have, and it doesn't have to be a win. It can just be, hey, I raced here. I went from 10th to third. And if that's a great result for you, then we want to share it with people. So get on and share those with us, and then we'll talk to you next week.
I do got one more shout out.
Okay.
Fiona at Highline Racewear, we just got our suits yesterday, and we decided to go with white, and man, these things are popping. Go on, if you want to check them out, go on Adriana Timmerman Racing, check the racing suit out. I'll have Highline's link there.
Okay.
It's a pretty awesome suit. So
awesome. We want to promote Highline Racewear, and so get on their link as well. She was on our show last week, so if you want to hear more about her company, get on and listen to last week's show. But yeah, we love promoting those women-owned businesses.
That's all I got.
All right, Brett. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep, we'll see you. Live rowdy.
Good night, everybody.